Hello chess friends, and welcome to your Out of Chess channel, and welcome to another great game that I prepared for you today. It's a brilliant game played by the world champion Magnus Carlsen against another top grandmaster You Yangyi in the so-called Cochrane Gambit of the Russian game of the Petrov defense. And it's really wild that I found this game because I thought that no one plays this opening these days, because it's really dubious opening. You're giving up a knight in an early stage of the game for the compensation of 2 pawns, so you get 2 pawns, but you have also sort of an attack against your opponent's king. It's really sharp opening. You have to know what you're doing, because one inaccuracy can cost you the whole game, and this was an incredible game with ups and downs. There were inaccuracies and blunders by both sides. So as I said, it's so sharp that it's really hard to find the tactical sequence that works for you. So as I said, you should try it out maybe sometimes in Blitz bullet games, see if it's working for you. Maybe not in classical time format chess, because your opponent could find maybe some good defensive ideas. And I came to the idea to cover more of this Cochrane Gambit because recently we have covered 2 great games played by top engines Dragon and Stockfish in their super final of the TCEC season 22, in which is really wild, both of these games ended with a draw. So both engines managed to defend the position from Black's perspective, and also White didn't lose the game because of the Cochrane Gambit. So as I said, I was really curious. I wanted to see more games about this opening, and also what was a beautiful game was the game between Veselin Topalov against Vladimir Kramnik. So they pulled off also a very sharp Cochrane Gambit. So as I said, maybe it's even playable top grandmaster level, who knows, because as I also mentioned in our previous analysis of this opening, the top engines are showing us now these days that basically everything is possible in chess, that no opening is dead. So it's really hard to defend every position now in chess. If you are not good in tactics, you could get smashed easily, even in some King's Gambit, maybe Vienna games, and in some other sharp openings. So let's check out now how the world champion Magnus Carlsen played the Cochrane Gambit and how You Yangyi defended this position. So here Magnus played, of course, the first move e4. We have e5 by You Yangyi, knight to f3, and we have after move knight to f6, of course, the Russian game, the Petrov defense is on the board. And okay, here Magnus takes. We have now d6 by You Yangyi, and most of the times you should go here knight to f3, then Black will take out the pawn on e4. And the most important strategical idea, I think, of Black's in the Petrov defense in the Russian game is to get the symmetrical pawn structure, to get the symmetry in an early stage of the game, and then it's really hard for White to find some attacking formations, to find attacking opportunities. So many times Black is playing the Petrov defense or the Russian game if he wants to get a draw. And of course it's an understandable decision here by You Yangyi to force maybe a draw with the black pieces against the world champion Magnus Carlsen, who wouldn't be, of course, satisfied with that kind of an outcome. So here after move d6, Magnus plays now the Cochrane Gambit move, which is now knight takes f7. And okay, we have grabbed now 2 pawns, and also what we have as another compensation is, of course, this endangered king's position. So okay, the engine gives here already +1 evaluation for Black. So now Black needs to defend this position, but if Black makes only 1 inaccuracy, this could be over. So because the king is endangered and you don't have good piece activity. The problem, I think, in the Cochrane Gambit is always the lack of development of the dark square bishop. So you would love to play bishop to e7, then to play somewhere with the rook, and then secure the king here by on g8. If you play king to g8 immediately without this maneuvers of the bishop, without the maneuver with the rook, then of course the rook is stuck here on the square h6. So it's really hard to make something out of this also from Black's perspective. So here after move d4, which is now the natural way here to proceed, again I'm pointing out we have also covered this potential lines in our analysis in these 2 games between Stockfish and the Dragon. If you play knight to e4, this is not good. Of course you get queen to h5 and then followed with queen to d5, the game could be over. So as I said, even if you try king to e7, then you get something like this one, queen to e1. And even if you try, I don't know, to defend this knight with on e4 with move d5, then you get bishop to g5. You see the queen gets trapped, you cannot take because of the activity of the queen on the e file. So it's something that we have, as I said, covered so far. I'll show you, of course, also the links of that videos in the description below. So here in the continuation after move d4, I think You Yangyi found really a beautiful way how to counterplay the Cochrane Gambit. He played now the move d4, and this is a good move because many times the main strength of white is of course a potential f4 move afterwards, not immediately, but white is preparing many times the move f4 and then breaks through with the move e5. We have seen it also in these two games that we have covered, that the move e5 is the main strategical goal of white. So that's why here even sacrificing the pawn is good a choice, because then the pawns cannot roll here in the center of the board. The main strength that white has here now is of course that white has all of the 8 pawns on the board. So now the pawn mobility causes many problems in black's position. So that's why it's really good choice here by You Yangyi to undermine a little bit the pressure here and slow down the pace of white's progress. So after move c5 we have now knight to c3 by Magnus Carlsen. If you play bishop to c4 immediately, this is not good, because again I'm pointing out there is a beautiful defensive idea that black can pull off many times. First we play d5, and after move e takes d5, it's not the point that we want to take the pawn on d5, then you get pinned and you don't want to play the game of course like this with this pressured knight around the square d5. That's why you would play many times a blockade idea. A blockade idea is I think perfectly fine here if you're playing the game from black's perspective, and now you could get your goal. Play something like rook to e1, pardon me, rook to e8, sorry, and then king to g8. Then you would secure the king almost like you have castle. So as I said, the blockade idea is working many times as a good defensive strategy in these types of structures. So that's why after move c5 here, Magnus played knight to c3. We have c takes d4. So finally this is releasing the pressure a little bit in the center. Now after move bishop to c4, here You Yangyi has to play king to e8, because the problem is here, if you cover yourself with the bishop, this is not good, because you get bishop to e6 and after king to e6, queen to d4. And the problem is now you get another check by the queen, because you can maybe try to escape with king to f7, then you get queen to c4, and even if you escape here to e8, the problem is now I think this very annoying pin. And as I said in the beginning, the problem is always the lack of development of the dark square bishop. So almost it's like you're playing without this bishop, because it's so blocked out by its own pawn structure. g6 is of course not a possibility. You get some ideas of knight to d5. So I'm not sure if I would evaluate really now the position that black has here an extra piece, because the piece on f8 will not play in the continuation of the game. So that's why it would be not here a good continuation. Then after something like knight to d7, I think white can even queenside castle and now continue the pressure on the d file, can play something like f4, e5, rook to e1. So let simply the position explode and get use of this activity by the rooks on the d and e file. So as I said, it's so tempting I think to play here the move bishop to e6 to release the pressure, to simplify the game, but actually here it's not working. So that's why after move here, as we said, bishop to c4, here You Yangyi played king to e8 and now queen to d4, knight to c6, normal idea, kicking away the queen, queen to e3, and now queen to b6 here by You Yangyi. Of course Magnus Carlsen doesn't want to trade off pieces. That's a simple rule I think when you're on the attacking side, but also when you're down in material, you should not simplify the game by trading off more pieces. If you do that, of course, then your opponent wants to reach the endgame stage where he could have maybe an extra knight. You have your 2 pawns, but the position is not so dangerous anymore without the queens on the board. So that's why Magnus plays a natural queen to g3. Now comes really a critical moment already. Here You Yangyi plays already a mistake. This is not the best of moves to play knight to d4. It's again tempting, of course, to play sort of a fork, but actually you don't have to react here. You just castle. The problem is now, again, you have to secure the king. You have to play something like bishop to d7 and maybe at least trying to secure the king on the queen side. Here, after move knight to d5, d4, Magnus is saying, okay, you can take the pawn, but if you do that, if you play knight to c2, then I have here this move, very annoying move, bishop to b5, and that's something I think that bothers now black in the continuation of the game. If you cover yourself with the bishop, still we can take. This is perfectly fine, because if you take with the knight, then you get knight to d5. You see, you have lost the battle around the square d5, and again, it's such an unpleasant game here to play here from black's perspective. If you try something like, I don't know, queen to c6, then we get this one, queen to h3, with a very annoying check on e6 that is possible. So really bad position here for black. So even if you try here maybe after bishop to b5 and bishop takes d7, if you take with the king, so you want to stay with your knight on f6, you want to control the d5 square, it's not even better because you get rook to b1. We are first securing the rook here, and now if you try maybe rook to e8 in order to finally escape with the king and secure the king maybe here on the queen side, it's again not possible because you get this stuff. This is again very annoying. Bishop to g5 always causes some problems here. After bishop to f6, this knight will get on a beautiful centralized square, so it's a bad position. Even if you try to escape, look at this, rook to c1 will happen. Now you're getting destroyed here on the c file, so it's game over here for black. So it's not so easy, as I said, to defend this position. There are so many tricky things that can happen to you. So after move knight to d4 and Carlsen here, You Yangyi realized that he should not take, of course, the pawn on c2. Plays now beautiful move. I think it's a great move that causes now many problems here for Magnus Carlsen. It's the move bishop to e6. And as we said, in some of these lines we have seen that trading off the bishops is perfectly fine, but only when you decoy the king a little bit towards here the center of the board, when we can create maybe some checks. Now after move bishop to e6, Magnus makes, I think, the most important mistake of the game he took. Now bishop takes e6 is simply not good anymore. You should simply try here bishop to d3, and here after move king to d7 we can play bishop to e3, and here after something like rook to e8 we can simply activate both of these rooks again on the e file, on the d file. And for instance, if you try something like queen to c5 here, if you don't want to move your king, then I think the most important thing to do here is to play king to h1, getting out of this potential range of the queen. And now with f4, e5, f5, bishop to e3, maybe bishop to g5, you can have really beautiful activity. The evaluation is about equal, but I would not love to play now anymore the game from black's perspective, because it seems to me that now in the next couple of moves it's very easy to find good moves here for white. White will simply push pawns and hope for the best. Of course, if the position gets somehow opened on the e file, it's very dangerous for black. So as I said, here bishop to e6, huge mistake by the world champion Magnus Carlsen. You Yangyi simply takes, and now it seems to me that Magnus Carlsen attack has splashed a little bit, that actually it's now much easier for black to defend this position. So knight to d5, we have queen to c6, knight takes f6, we have g takes f6. Okay, we have some structural weaknesses here, but now again the only attacking piece that Magnus has now is now the bishop and the queen, and this is simply not enough. You don't have attacking resources anymore. Okay, you could maybe include somehow the rook into the game, but basically your own pawn is standing now in the way on the e file, so the e file is now very hard to open. So it's something went wrong here. Magnus Carlsen attack, he tried queen to g4, attacking now the knight on e6. We have king to e7, and now bishop to d2. Magnus is desperately trying now to activate some further pieces. We have h5, kicking away the queen, queen to g6, and now a beautiful move. Really great move here by You Yangyi, a great defensive move, bishop to h6, because if you take, of course, bishop to h6, then you get rook to g8, and the queen gets again deflected here from the defense of the bishop. We can take out the bishop, then in one couple move after a couple of moves we will probably play knight to f4, try to cement this knight on this very active square, and now I think you could get destroyed here on the g file. So here You Yangyi finally defended. After move bishop to h6 here, Magnus Carlsen tried bishop to c3, but now with rook to f8 everything is glued together. The f6 is now very well protected. So rook to e1, we have bishop to f4, we have a rook to d1, and now bishop to e5. This is a good defensive move, locking simply the position on the r-squares. We have a rook to e3 here. Magnus is probably trying to include more pieces into the game, but you don't have any more piece to attack the light squares. I think you would love to have maybe a knight now that could jump here on d5 on f5. You could, if you would love, of course, to have maybe a light square bishop, but you see, by trading off the light square bishops, Magnus actually made his life much worse here in this game. So after move rook to e3, we have rook to g8 now by You Yangyi attacking the queen, queen to f5. Now comes the main strategy here, knight to f4. This is now a key target here in the position. So we have here bishop to e5, d takes e5, and after move h4, here You Yangyi simply takes, knight takes g2, and here after move rook to g3, a beautiful stunning move, knight to e3, attacking the queen in this position. Magnus Carlsen resigns. So if you take, of course, then you will lose the rook here, so it was game over. Beautiful, beautiful defensive game by You Yangyi, but you see how wild things can become in this Cochrane Gambit. You Yangyi didn't play in one particular moment the best continuation. Magnus had his chances, so as I said, this is something really worth sometimes a little bit to study, because you can surprise your opponent. I'm sure that the Petrov defense player or Russian game player is not maybe analyzing at home so much this opening, so try it out sometimes, maybe in some Blitz bullet games, and maybe you can also text me some of your games. I'll leave you my email address. Maybe you have played really some sharp attacks in the Cochrane Gambit. Maybe we can also cover your games here on my YouTube channel. I'm really curious if this opening is really working, because we have seen, as I said now, in these games played by top engines, that actually it's really hard also for black to defend. It's really also hard for a white to make something, but in top grandmaster level we have seen that also some of these ideas could work, and you should try it out, as I said. So, okay, I hope that you enjoyed the game. I really enjoyed it a lot. Interesting ideas of the Cochrane Gambit. If you want to see more about this opening, here are these two games that we have covered so far in this very sharp opening. And if you want to see more attacking brilliances played by top engine, check out my commented chess games played by computer series with some more games played by Stockfish, Alpha Zero, Lila Zero, and many more. And if you like this content, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. See you soon with some more videos, and chess is the best, of course.